A man is sunbathing on a nude beach. To prevent a sunburn, he covers his most important organ with a hat. A woman passes by and notices the hat. She says, "Sir, a real gentleman always lifts his hat in front of a lady." The man replies, "Ma'am, if you were a real lady, the hat would have lifted itself." Grandpa says to Grandma, "Come on, let's play like we did in our youth. All right? I'll wait for you at the end of the village, like before. You just come." Agreed. Grandpa waits and waits for his grandma, but she doesn't come. He goes back home. "Why didn't you come?" "My mother said I couldn't." A bodybuilder was admiring his physique in the mirror when he noticed he was suntanned everywhere but his lower body. Determined to fix this, he decided to go to the beach and buried himself in the sand, leaving only his lower half exposed. As he lay there, two elderly ladies walked by and saw what was sticking out of the sand. One of them poked it with her cane and said, "There isn't any justice in this world." Curious, her friend asked, "What do you mean?" The first lady replied, "When I was 20, I was curious about it. When I was 30, I enjoyed it. When I was 40, I wanted it. At 50, I sought it. By 60, I was hoping for it. When I hit 70, I forgot about it altogether. And now that I'm 80, it seems to be everywhere, but I'm too old to do anything about it." A man's surprise return at home from work turned into a chaotic and comical scene. He found his wife sprawled on the bed, gasping for breath, and she claimed to be having a heart attack. The concerned husband rushed to call an ambulance, but his plans were interrupted by his distraught son, Johnny. The little boy revealed a shocking secret. Uncle James was hiding in the closet, completely naked. Enraged, the father stormed upstairs to confront his brother, only to find him standing there, unclothed and unashamed. The man's anger turned to absurdity as he scolded his brother. "My wife is having a heart attack, and you're running around naked, scaring Johnny." I rang my brother's house, and his 6-year-old son, Billy, answered the phone. "Hey, Billy," I said. "Is your dad there?" "Yes," he answered, is a whisper. "But he's busy." "What about your mum?" I said. "She's busy too," he replied. But again in a whisper I could barely hear. "What are they doing?" I asked. "They're talking to the policeman," he replied, still in a very faint whisper. "What are the policemen doing there?" I asked. "Looking for me," he whispered. At a hotel restaurant, a man sees an attractive woman sitting alone at the next table. Suddenly she sneezes, and a glass eye comes flying out of her eye socket. It hurls by the man, and he snatches it from the air and hands it back to her. "This is so embarrassing," the woman says, and she pops her eye back in place. "I'm sorry to have disturbed you. Let me buy dinner to make it up to you. May I join you?" He nods. The woman is a stimulating conversationalist, stunningly pretty, and the man finds they have a lot in common. He gets her phone number and asks, "You are the most charming woman I've ever encountered. Are you this nice to every guy you meet?" "No," she replies. "You just happen to catch my eye." A man goes to the doctor with a long history of migraine headaches. When the doctor does his history and physical, he discovers that the poor guy has tried practically every therapy known to man for his migraines, and still no improvement. "Listen," says the doc, "I have migraines too, and the advice I'm going to give you isn't really anything I learned in medical school, but it's advice that I've gotten from my own experience. When I have a migraine, I go home, get in a bit of a nice hot bathtub, and soak for a while. Then I have my wife sponge me off with the hottest water I can stand, especially around the forehead. This helps a little. Then I get out of the tub, take her into the bedroom, and even if my head is killing me, I force myself to have sex with her. Almost always the headache is immediately gone. Now give it a try, and come back and see me in 6 weeks. 6 weeks later, the patient returns with a big grin. "Doc, I took your advice, and it works. It really works. I've had migraines for 17 years, and this is the first time anyone has ever helped me." "Well," says the physician, "I'm glad I could help. By the way, Doc," the patient adds, "you have a really nice house." An old married couple are sitting on their porch one morning, when suddenly the old lady lashes out with her cane and hits her husband on the knee. "Ow! What'd you do that for?" he asked. "That's for 60 years of bad sex." He stewed in silence a few moments, rubbing his knee. All of a sudden, he took his cane and thumped his wife on her knee. "Ow! What's that for?" "That's for knowing the difference." A young lady gets on a packed bus and takes a front row seat. As the bus hits a bump, she accidentally opens her legs a bit too wide. An old man sitting across from her leans forward and says, "Excuse me, miss, you're not wearing pies." Shocked and embarrassed, she snaps, "Didn't your mother teach you not to stare at women like that?" The old man smiles and calmly replies, "Didn't your mother teach you not to sit like you're airing laundry?" A married couple wakes up one morning. While still lying in bed, the wife turns to her husband and says, "Maybe you shouldn't go to work today." Surprised, the husband replies, "What do you mean? Why not?" She smiles and says, "I think you've been working too hard. Maybe take a few days off, pack a bag and stay with a friend, just to clear your head." The husband pauses for a moment, then jumps at the rare opportunity. In no time, he's dressed and packing his suitcase. As he's zipping it up, he turns to his wife and asks, "Just curious, what made you think I needed a break?" She calmly answers, "You were dreaming about work all night." Confused, he asks, "Wait, how do you know I was dreaming about work?" She gives him a look and says, "Because every 2 minutes you kept shouting your secretary's name." Terrible men were in the locker room of the gym when a cell phone on a bench rang, and a man put it on speaker and begins to talk. Everyone in the room stopped to listen. Man, "Hello?" Woman, "Hi, honey, it's me. Are you at the club?" Man, "Yes." Woman, "I'm at the shops now and found this beautiful leather coat. It's only $2,000. Is it okay if I buy it?" Man, "Sure, go ahead if you like that much." Woman, "I also stopped on the Lexus dealership and saw the new models. I saw one that I really liked." Man, "How much?" Woman, 90,000. Man, "Okay, but for that price, I want it with all options." Woman, "Great. Oh, and one more thing. I was just talking to Jane and found out that the house I wanted last year is back on market. They are asking $980,000 for it." Man, "Well then, go ahead and offer $900,000. They'll probably take it. If not, we can go to the extra $80,000 if that's what you really want." Woman, "Okay, see you later. I love you too much." Man, "Bye. I love you too." The man hung up. The other men in the locker room were staring at him in astonishment, mouths wide open. He turned and asked, "Anyone knows whose phone is this?" After enduring a blind date for what felt like an eternity, the man decided he couldn't handle another minute. Earlier, he had secretly set up an emergency call from a friend, just in case he needed an excuse to leave. When he returned to the table, he put on a somber face, lowered his gaze, and said, "I have some bad news. My grandfather just passed away." His date immediately sighed with relief and replied, "Thank goodness. If yours hadn't, mine would have had too." Oh, the relief was mutual. Two old men are sitting in a bar. One of them looks at the other and says, "You look familiar. Where are you from?" The second old man replies, "Ireland." The first old man looks astonished and says, "No way, I'm from Ireland myself. What a small world." The second old man then looks at the first. "What city?" The first old man says, "Dublin." The second old man looks astonished. No way I'm from Dublin myself. What a small world. The first boss looks at the second old man. What school you go to? The second old man replies, St. Mary's class of 89. The first old man is absolutely baffled. No way! St. Mary's class of 89 myself. What a small world. At this point, another man comes into the bar and says to the bartender, Hey Joe, anything interesting going on? The bartender says, Not really, but the Murphy twins are drunk again. A couple is discussing travel and final wishes when the wife suddenly poses a serious question to her husband. A wife says to her husband, If I died in a foreign city, say Jerusalem, and it cost $30,000 to send me back home or $500 to bury me there, which would you choose? The husband replies, $30,000 to ship you back. The wife, happy but surprised with his answer, asks, Really? Why would you choose $30,000 over $500? The husband explains, Because 2,000 years ago in Jerusalem, a man died and rose from the dead 3 days later. I can't take that chance. A man walks into a quiet bar and tells the bartender, This is the third time I've been in this place. The bartender, curious, asks, Really? The man nods. In 1982, I came here the night before my wedding. I was nervous, unsure. I didn't know if I was ready. For love, for life, for forever. The bartender leans in. And the second time, over 40 years later, I came back. It was the day after my wife passed away. Funny how the things we feared become the things we miss most. The bar falls silent. Those were the 2 most important days of my life. The man says, eyes distant. The bartender, quietly moved, finally asks, Anne, what brings you here today? The man sighs. I forgot my umbrella. St. Peter versus Satan. The ultimate office showdown. They had been arguing for days. Who was better at getting things done? St. Peter or Satan? God had finally had enough. Enough! He thundered. I'm giving you both a 2-hour computer test. Whoever does the best work wins. So they sat down at their keyboards. They typed. They clicked. Spreadsheets, emails, presentations, Photoshop, genealogy charts, even greeting cards. They did it all. Then, 10 minutes before time was up, boom, lightning, thunder, power outage, total darkness. When the lights came back on, Satan was furious. My files, my work, it's all gone. But St. Peter? He just calmly hit print. Satan screamed, That's not fair. How did he still have everything? God smiled and said, St. Peter saves. The guys were all at a deer camp, and no one wanted to room with Clyde because he snored so badly. They decided it wasn't fair to make one of them stay with him the whole time, so they voted to take turns. The first guy slept with Clyde and comes to breakfast the next morning with his hair a mess and his eyes all bloodshot. They said, Man, what happened to you? He said, Clyde snored so loudly, I just sat up and watched him all night. The next night, it was a different guy's turn. In the morning, same thing, hair all standing up, eyes all bloodshot. They said, Man, what happened to you? You look awful. He said, Man, he shakes the roof with his snoring. I watched him all night. The third night was Fred's turn. Fred was a tanned, older cowboy, a man's man. The next morning, he came to breakfast, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Good morning, he said. They couldn't believe it. They said, Man, what happened? He said, Well, we got ready for bed. I went and tucked Clyde in and patted him on the butt and kissed him goodnight. He sat up and watched me all night. A recently widowed lady was sitting on a beach towel at Cocoa Beach, Florida. She looked up and noticed that a man her age had walked up, placed his blanket on the sand nearby, and began reading a book. Smiling, she attempted to strike up a conversation with him. Hello, sir. How are you? Fine, thank you. he responded, and turned back to his book. I love the beach. Do you come here often? She asked. First time since my wife passed away last year, he replied, and again turned back to his book. Do you live around here? She asked. Yes, I live over in Suntree, he answered, and then resumed reading. Trying to find a topic of common interest, Sarah persisted. Do you like pussycats? With that, the man threw his book down, jumped off his blanket onto hers, tore off both their swimsuits, and gave her with the most passionate ride of her life. As the cloud of sand began to settle, Sarah gasped and asked the man, How did you know that was what I wanted? The man replied, How did you know my name was Cats? A guy is doing 90 in a 75 and sees lights from a patrol car in the mirror. He thinks furiously for a moment and then floors it. 95, 100, 110. Finally, with the officer still hot on his tail, he slows to a crawl and pulls over to the roadside. The officer, obviously on edge, cautiously approaches the car as the man rolls down the window and places hands out where they can easily be seen. You were going a little fast there, the officer says, but it is the end of my shift, and tonight the boys are coming over for beers and cards, so you have exactly one chance to explain yourself. The man, with all the sincerity he could muster, replied, Sir, round about a year ago, my wife left me for a state trooper. I tell you, that nag leaving was the best thing that ever happened to me, and I knew it was too good to be true because when I saw your lights in the rear view, I could have sworn you were bringing her back. The officer paused for a moment and said, Have a nice day and drive safe. A young Catholic couple tragically dies in a car accident on their way to get married. Moments later, they find themselves at the pearly gates, waiting for St. Peter. While sitting there, the bride turns to the groom and asks, Do you think we can still get married in heaven? When St. Peter shows up, they ask him. He scratches his head and says, No one's ever asked that before. Let me check. And he disappears. Weeks pass. Then months. The couple starts wondering, do we really want to do this for eternity? What if it doesn't work out? Are we stuck married forever? Finally, after 3 months, St. Peter comes back, looking exhausted. Good news, he says. You can get married in heaven. The couple cheers. Then the groom hesitantly asks, Okay, but what if it doesn't work out? Can we get a divorce in heaven too? St. Peter turns red, throws his clipboard down and yells, Oh, come on! It took me 3 months to find a priest up here. Do you have any idea how long it'll take to find a lawyer? This man in a van pulls up next to a guy in a Rolls Royce at a stop sign. Their windows are open and he yells at the guy in the Rolls, Hey, you got a telephone in there? The guy in the Rolls says, Yes, of course I do. I got one too. See? Yes, that's very nice. Then the man in the van says, You got a fax machine? Why, actually, yes, I do. I do too. See, it's right here. The light is just about to turn green, and the guy in the van says, So do you have a double bed in back there? And the guy in the Rolls says, No, do you? Yep, got my double bed right in back here. See? The light turns and the man in the van takes off. Well, the guy in the Rolls is not about to be one-upped, so he goes immediately to a customizing shop and orders them to put a double bed in back of his car. About 2 weeks later, the job is finally done, and he picks up his car and drives all over town looking for the van. He finally finds it parked alongside the road, so he pulls his Rolls up next to it. The windows on the van are all fogged up, and he feels a little awkward about it, but he gets out of his newly modified Rolls and taps on the foggy window of the van. The man in the van finally opens the window a crack and peeks out. The guy in the Rolls says, Hey, remember me? Yeah, I remember you. What's up? Check this out. I got a double bed installed in my Rolls. And the man in the van says, You got me out of the shower to tell me that. Little Zachary was doing terribly at mathematics. He constantly scored Fs, and his teachers said that he was dragging far behind his classmates. His parents tried everything they could to help him improve. Flashcards, tutors, books, nothing seemed to work. Finally, after getting some advice from the counselor, they decided to send him to a Catholic school. Little Zachary didn't seem to mind, so the next week he started going to the new Catholic school. When he got home after the first day, he immediately went up to his room and started studying furiously. Papers were strewn about all over the room, and his parents could only look on in fascination. After a few weeks, little Zachary came home and handed a paper to his parents. It was a math quiz with a big red A on it. His parents were ecstatic. After dinner, little Zachary sat down to talk with his parents. They wanted to know what made him change so much. "Zachary, you've got to tell us. What made you improve so much? Was it the teachers?" asked his mother. "Nope," said little Zachary. "Was it the nuns?" asked his father. "Nope," replied little Zachary. "Was it the uniforms, the discipline, the other students? What was it?" said his mother, practically going mad. "Well, the first day I went there, I saw a statue of a guy nailed to a huge plus sign, so I knew they weren't messing around." A woman was having a lovely day playing golf with her friends when she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, look at the time. I have to hurry home and make dinner for my husband. He'll be so upset if it's not ready on time." When she arrived home, she found her fridge nearly empty, just a wilted lettuce leaf, an egg, and a can of cat food. With no time to spare for a grocery run, she decided to make the best of it. She opened the can of cat food, mixed in the egg, and garnished the dish with the lettuce leaf. When her husband came home, she greeted him cheerfully and watched in horror as he sat down to his meal. To her surprise, he started eating with a smile. "Darling, this is the best dinner you've made in 40 years of marriage. You can cook this for me anytime." From that day on, every time she played golf, she served him the same dish. She shared the story with her golfing friends, who were horrified. "You're going to give him a heart attack," they warned. 2 months later, her husband passed away. While sitting in the clubhouse, one of the women said, "You caused his death. We warned you that feeding him that cat food would end badly." "How can you just sit there so calmly, knowing you killed your husband?" another friend asked. The wife shrugged and replied, "I didn't kill him. He fell off the windowsill while he was licking himself." The pearly gates of heaven. St. Peter is the receptionist at the entrance. Suddenly, a cat shows up. St. Peter says, "I know you. You were a very nice cat on earth, and you didn't cause any trouble. As a reward, I want to offer you one special gift you've always wanted." The cat thinks for a moment and replies, "Well, I always longed for a nice satin pillow like my master had, so I could lie on it comfortably." St. Peter smiles and says, "That's easy. Granted, you shall have your satin pillow as soon as you enter." Next, a group of mice arrives. St. Peter greets them. "Ah, I remember you. You were such good mice on Earth. You didn't steal food or cause problems for anyone. Therefore, I want to grant you one special wish you've always had." The chief mouse responds, "Well, we always watched the children playing and thought roller skating looked beautiful and so much fun. Could we each have some roller skates, please?" St. Peter nods. "Granted. You shall have your roller skates." The next day, as St. Peter makes his rounds inside the gates, he sees the cat lounging comfortably on its pillow. He asks, "Well, cat, did you enjoy the satin pillow?" "Oh, indeed I did," the cat replies. "And I must say that Meals on Wheels service was a delightful surprise too." Late one night, a police officer was patrolling a desolate area popular with young couples, doing more than just sitting in the dark. Catching his attention was a couple in a car with the interior light on. Moving closer, the cop could see a young man behind the steering wheel reading a newspaper. In the back seat, a young blonde was knitting. The lawman walked up to the vehicle and knocked on the driver's side window. The startled lad rolled it down and said, "Yes, officer?" "What are you doing?" the cop asked. "Isn't it obvious?" the young man replied. "I'm reading today's newspaper." Pointing to the blonde in the back seat, the policeman grunted. "And what's she doing?" "I believe she's knitting a sweater," the guy behind the wheel responded. "How old are you?" the cop inquired. "I'm 22, officer." "And the girl, how old is she?" The dude in the driver's seat looked at his watch and said, "She'll turn 18 in 10 minutes. Old lady gets into a Mercedes-Benz taxi cab. As she hops in, the driver asks her where she's going. She gives him an address, as she's just arrived to town to visit family. They keep going for a bit when the old lady notices the very characteristic Mercedes-Benz ornament emblem mounted on the hood. "So what is that thing for?" "I name here," she asks the driver. The driver sees this as a chance to prank the old woman for some laughs. "That's a sight that I had installed so I can aim my targets better," he answers. "What do you mean by targets?" she asks. "Well, you see that cyclist over there cycling along the road? Well, I hate those cyclists, so I'm going to run over him." As the woman gasps, he proceeds to accelerate and drive directly towards the unaware cyclist, but in the last moment, he turns the wheel to dodge the cyclist. But there's a loud sound that surprises the driver. "What was that sound?" he asks. "Well, you can say whatever you want about that fancy sight of yours, but if I hadn't opened the car's door, we wouldn't have hit that damn cyclist." A man was terribly overweight, so his doctor put him on a diet. "I want you to eat regularly for 2 days, then skip a day, then eat regularly again for 2 days, then skip a day. Repeat this procedure for 2 weeks. Next time I see you, you should have lost at least 5 pounds. When the man returned, he shocked the doctor by having lost nearly 60 pounds. "Wow, that's amazing," the doctor said. "Did you follow my instructions?" The man nodded. "I'll tell you though, I thought I was going to drop dead on the 3rd day." "From the hunger, you mean?" asked the doctor. "No, from the skipping." "Son, Dad, I have to do a special report for school. Can I ask you a question?" "Father, sure, son. What's the question?" "Son, what is politics?" "Father, well, let's take our home for an example. I am the wage earner, so let's call me capitalism. Your mother is the administrator of money, so we'll call her government. We take care of your need, so let's call you the people. We'll call the maid the working class, and your little brother we can call the future. Do you understand, son?" "Son, I'm not really sure, Dad. I'll have to think about it." That night, awakened by his brother's crying, the boy went to see what was wrong. Discovering that the baby had seriously soiled his diaper, the boy went to his parents' room and found his mother sound asleep. He went to the maid's room, where, peeking through the keyhole, he saw his father in bed with the maid. The boy's knocking went totally unheeded by his father and the maid, so the boy returned to his room and went back to sleep. The next morning, he reported to his father, "Son, Dad, now I think I understand what politics is." "Father, good son, can you explain it to me in your own words?" "Son, well, Dad, while capitalism is screwing the working class, government is sound asleep, the people are being completely ignored, and the future is full of shit." A farmer had 5 female pigs. Times were hard, so he decided to take them to the county fair and sell them. At the fair, he met another farmer who owned 5 male pigs. After talking a bit, they decided to mate the pigs and split everything equally. The farmers lived 60 miles apart, so they agreed to meet halfway, then find a field where they could let the pigs mate. The first morning, the farmer with the female pigs got up at 5 a.m., loaded the pigs into the family station wagon, and drove the 30 miles to the field. While the pigs were mating, he asked the other farmer, "How will I know if they are pregnant?" The other farmer replied, "If they're lying in the grass tomorrow morning, they're pregnant. If they're in the mud, they're not." The next morning, the pigs were rolling in the mud, so he hosed them off, loaded them into the family station wagon, and proceeded to try again. This continued each morning for more than a week. Both farmers were worn out. The next morning, the farmer was too tired to get out of bed. He called to his wife, "Honey, please look outside and tell me whether the pigs are in the mud or in the grass." "Neither," yelled his wife. "They're in the station wagon and one of them is honking the horn." A man is sitting in a taxi in Newcastle on his way home to Sunderland. He recognizes the taxi driver, and with great enthusiasm mentions this. "I know you. You picked me and the missus up that time from the train station and took us to the airport. Remember?" The taxi driver, who sees hundreds of different people every day, smiles politely and replies, "Maybe," rather unconvincingly. A typical, though nevertheless unbearable awkwardness follows, whereupon the driver says, "Riddle me this." The passenger sits up straight and prepares for thinking. "Our brothers and sisters has he none, but this man's father is my father's only son. Who is the man?" The passenger thinks long and hard, then shrugs. "I give up. Who? Come on, think about it. Brothers and sisters has he none, but this man's father is my father's only son. Who must it be? It can't be anyone else." Slightly aggravated by his own dullness, the passenger says, "I don't know. Tell me, who is it?" "Why, it's me, of course. My father's only son is me." "Ah, good one," replies the passenger, and they continue the journey in Ghent, save for his occasionally mumbling, "Brothers and sisters has he none," quietly to himself. He gets back to his house, and later that evening announces to his wife that he has got a good riddle for her. "Brothers and sisters has he none, but this man's father is my father's only son. Who is the man?" "How the should I know?" snaps his wife, without a moment's thought. "Well, you're stupid. It's obvious. It's that taxi driver from the train station in Newcastle." A cop pulls a car over for going 20 mph on the highway. The driver is a little old lady, and there are two old ladies in the back seat. The cop asks, "Why were you driving just 20 miles per hour?" The old lady responds, "I was just going the posted speed limit," and points to a sign up ahead. The cop smiles and says, "That's not the speed limit sign. That's the sign for this highway, Route 20. One of the old ladies in the back gasps out, "We tried to tell you, Eugenia." The cop takes another look at the old women in the back and sees that they are wide-eyed and disheveled. One of them is tightly gripping the door handle. "What's the matter?" the cop asks. She responds, "We just came off of Interstate 190. Yesterday, I got a friend request from this young guy, maybe 22 or 24, and let's just say he was easy on the eyes. Naturally, I accepted. I mean, what harm could it do?" The messages started right away. He called me beautiful and wanted to know my age. I figured, why not be honest? I told him I was old enough to remember dial-up internet, and I wasn't exactly running marathons these days. He didn't seem to mind. Then things got interesting. He asked if we could discuss adult things. I was a little intrigued, so I said, "Sure, why not?" "Perfect, babe. You start," he replied. "All right, challenge accepted." I told him the real adult things. I went on about how my joints sound like a percussion band and how the weather report is pretty much written in my bones. I detailed the epic saga of my bedtime routine, which involves reading glasses, 2 layers of eye cream, and just the right pillow arrangement to prevent back pain. I wasn't done yet. I explained how I have to take my fiber supplements, how I'm practically best friends with my heating pad, and how grocery shopping these days means scanning for sales on prunes and anti-aging creams. I even threw in a little info about my stellar dentures. Because why not? I went on and on, fully committed to giving him the adult content he asked for. But suddenly, poof, he blocked me. Guess he wasn't ready for the full-grown experience. A little girl approached her mother with curiosity one day, eager to share an interesting encounter. But her mother, busy with work, decided to wait until her husband returned home to hear the story together. The anticipation grew as the family gathered, wondering what the little girl had to say. Finally, the mother turned to her daughter and encouraged her to continue the tale. However, before the father could speak, the mother interjected, suggesting that they consult with her attorney in the morning. Nevertheless, the little girl, with her innocent voice, went on to share her adventurous experience. Excitedly, the little girl explained, "Daddy told me to stay downstairs, but I couldn't resist following them without him noticing. And guess what I saw? They were hugging and kissing at the top of the stairs." The mother couldn't help but show admiration, asking the little girl what she saw through the keyhole. The little girl beamed with excitement, exclaiming, "I saw them hugging and kissing even more. They even took off their clothes. They continued until they had nothing, and then the lady got on the bed, and Daddy got on top of her." Filled with curiosity, the mother asked, "And what happened next, my dear?" Without hesitation, the little girl confidently replied, "Then they did what you and Uncle Jack did when Daddy was in Vancouver last year." This innocent revelation left the room filled with mixed emotions. It served as a reminder of how children perceive the world around them, bringing forth a purity and honesty that is unmatched.